In this session, we'll learn how to glaze our ceramic cityscape. In the last class or session, you fully painted your cityscape with underglaze. You did inside each window. You did around the top edge so that the buildings matched. You did around the side edges so that the sides looked nice. You left nothing on the bottom so that it won't stick to the kiln shelf. And what you want to do now is we're going to start clear glazing. The clear glaze should be labeled with clear glaze on the top, and there should be one clear glaze on the side. It looks pinkish, and when you unscrew the lid, it should look something like that. And what you want to do is you just want to take your brush with good brush control, and you want to kind of dip in and almost scoop it out so that it's dripping. If I hold my hand up here, you can see that it drips onto my hand. I want it nice and full so it's nice and drippy. So we're not painting it on, we're kind of patting it on the surface. So you take it, your brush, and you just kind of pat it on the surface. I like to do about 3 pats. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Notice I'm not scrubbing back and forth with my brush. I'm just patting it on the surface. If you scrub it back and forth, you're going to disturb the colors underneath, and the colors will get all mixed up and messy and muddy, and it'll just kind of turn into a big brown glob of goo. So you really want to make sure that you're not scrubbing back and forth, but you're patting your glaze onto the surface gently. Okay. Do please get the glaze inside the holes of your windows. Do please cover every square inch of the front. Do please leave this bottom clean with no glaze, because we don't want it to stick to the kiln shelf. If you put the glaze on the bottom there, when I stand it up in the kiln to fire the clay, the kiln shelf, the glaze will run down and it will get onto the kiln shelf and stick. We don't want it to stick. Okay, so you can kind of get the idea how I'm doing this. You don't have to be super precise because you're not doing any detailed work like, filling in the windows, each individual window by itself, and you're not like, marking the time on the clock towers. Make sure that you get your glaze in all the little holes. Like, see that one I missed? I'm going to go back and just dab some glaze in there. We do want to cover the whole surface, and you notice that over here where I've since been done for a little bit, you can hardly see the color underneath. If you put a layer on like this and you can still see the color underneath like that, it's not enough glaze. You really need to have a nice thick layer so that you can't see the color underneath. Okay, so please do that. I would suggest working with your cityscape lying down like this so that it doesn't tip over and break, and just because it's kind of easier, then the glaze kind of has the time to sit on the top and just lay on the top and dry rather than running down in a bunch of gooey lines. So I'm going to finish this part of it, and then we'll make sure we do the top edge and the side edges. You can notice I'm working pretty fast. Not pressing down hard with my brush, just kind of letting the glaze dribble off my brush. I'm going to tilt my piece here because it'll be easier for me to get. Notice I'm just taking the tip of my brush and poking it into these little holes so that the glaze actually gets into those. We want to make sure the glaze gets in there. Now if you missed anywhere, take a brief look, say, looks like the front is totally finished, I'm just going to take it now and I'm going to stand it up. And I'm going to do the top edge here. And if the glaze runs over the back, that's alright. And you might want to set it up like this, so if you've got any extra glaze on the front, it'll kind of run down. You can see right here how the glaze is kind of pooling up right there, because I had a bunch of glaze on that one and it's kind of running off. If you want to, as you're working, stand that up so it doesn't get too thick, because if you get too thick you'll get what's called pinholing, where the edges or the front of the clay starts to get the front of the clay has little like pinholes in it. It's called pinholing because it looks like someone took a pin and stuck it all over in the glaze. Okay, so I just have this other edge to do over here. And if you do end up, there we go, I'm done. You can see how the top edge is done. I'm not going to pick it up because it's kind of wet still, but this side edge is done, this side edge is done. And you can see that I've got a lot of glaze down on the bottom. So I'm just going to gently tip this back onto my fingers on my hand, and you'll kind of see this bottom edge is kind of gloobery with a bunch of glaze. Just take a wet paper towel or a sponge and just run it along the bottom edge like this to try to get that extra glaze off. And then when you're done, you're going to bring it to me and I'm going to put it into the kiln. Or if we don't have time left, you're just going to take it and you're going to put it into or onto the tray that's in the middle of your table so it can dry properly, and then I'll put it into the kiln later. Either way, it needs to get into the kiln now, but you have to have all of that glazing done first. So there you go, glazing a ceramic cityscape.